Greetings. Welcome to SC Thrive's Mental Health Matters. We're glad you're here. We want to remind you that every second and fourth Thursday of each month, we have a forum regarding mental health topics. We hope you will join us at 11:30 on the second and fourth Thursday of every month. We want to tell you about SC Thrive and SC Thrive's mission. SC Thrive leads South Carolinians to stability by providing innovative and efficient access to quality of life resources. Today is very important to us on the Mental Health Forum because we are going to be speaking about veterans and how much they mean to us. If you're a veteran, we hope that you will let us know by clicking on the chat button on your Zoom control. Not only would we like to know if you're a veteran, we'd like to know who you are and where you're from so that we can see how far out our reach is. And again, we really appreciate you being here today for this important topic. Here in South Carolina, we are surrounded by the branches of the military. Here in Columbia, we have one of the largest basic training bases in the nation at Fort Jackson. In Beaufort, we have the Naval Air Station and the United States Marine Corps at Parris Island. The Navy is located in Charleston at the Charleston Naval Base. Here in Sumter, we have the Air Force and its Shaw Air Force Base. We also, one of the presidential initiatives now is for the Space Force. In Charleston, we also have the Coast Guard. And here in just not too far from where I am here at SC Thrive, we have the National Guard comprised of the Army National Guard and the Air Guard. And we are so fortunate to have all of these organizations, all these branches of the military here in South Carolina. I am fortunate to introduce to you and honored to speak about Lance Newman. Lance is an incredible man who is doing so much for veterans in South Carolina and around the nation. Lance, we're really glad to have you today. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you, George. Can you hear me okay?
I can, sir.
Okay, outstanding. Hello, everyone. My name is Lance Newman, and I'm a retired Marine. I also am retired from law enforcement. Today, we're going to be discussing a sensitive topic surrounding PTSD. We want to just let you all know that by this subject being sensitive, if there's a time that you need to maybe step away because we're drumming up some things that's in your past, that's okay to do just that. During my time in the military, I retired as a Chief Warrant Officer 4, and we know that PTSD can be difficult. We know that times in the service, although there have been so many good times, there are some times also that there were some dark days. So as we go through it, we hope and pray that we can be a help to you and those that you're serving, whether in your family or whether you're a partner of SC Thrive. We hope to be able to give you some things to help you be able to continue to live thriving in every way. So we thank you, George, for that.
Well, like Lance, again, it's so good to speak with you. And folks, we are going to both be talking about post-traumatic stress, and it's one of the items on our agenda today. I have lived here in South Carolina, right outside of the Fort Jackson base since 1969. And so I get to hear all the bugle calls since 1969. And this slide sort of expresses the way that I've felt in that, unfortunately, I've always thought of veterans as being more senior adults in Colombia than young adults. And we have seen a lot of conflicts in the last 10, 20 years across the world. And we have young veterans. You may very well encounter someone, a man or a woman, that is 21 years of age or older, that has served in a conflict, and they deserve our thanks. And we're going to be talking a lot about that today. Lance, can you tell us what's changed in the meaning of veteran, and then what's the same?
Well, George, a veteran is someone who has served on active duty. Now, we have a great number of veterans who are National Guardsmen, and we're talking about serving for the periods of 160, 120, 190 days consecutively. So that pretty much hasn't changed. But veterans are people who have served on active duty or had a consecutive number of days that they served on active duty to be considered a veteran. You brought up a good point. There are many people out there, George, who don't believe that they're veterans because many of them thought that they had to be in a conflict of some sort or some type of wartime to feel like a veteran, and that's not true. To be a veteran, all it requires is having those consecutive days of service, and you are a veteran. So we just want to make sure that that's what they are and that's who they are. Not every veteran has PTSD. There's a large majority of the force that hasn't suffered from PTSD. And then we also, George, got to be reminded what PTSD is. George, have you ever almost been in an accident before on the street driving?
I have. Unfortunately, I've been in a couple collisions.
Okay, so those collisions, do you remember where those collisions were on the street, wherever you are?
I sure do.
Okay, and have you passed those locations recently or in the past?
I have, and as you know, working as a paramedic and being in public service, there are a lot of, when I'm driving, living in the same county that I work in, I will often drive past a location where I may have worked a very bad incident.
Okay, so even from your service to the community to the person that's almost been in an accident, that's still some type of form of PTSD. When you drive by a location where you almost were in an accident, you remember it. Some people take PTSD and they just associate it with military or law enforcement, and it comes in a lot of forms. It comes in forms of abuse. It comes in forms of sexual trauma. So there's many forms of it, but I just wanted to have an example about being in an accident. That's the best way I can explain it. When someone has almost been in an accident, they remember those times. They remember the smells, the places, what was going on around them. So I just wanted to make that clear regarding PTSD.
No, it's a really great point. And it's interesting that the VA's National Center for PTSD has found that 11 to 20% of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans may have PTSD. Up to 30% of Vietnam veterans have PTSD. Unfortunately, nationwide, only about 8% of the 5 million veterans using VA care have been diagnosed with this disorder. We're going to talk a lot today about the variables that lead that and why the numbers are so low. We want you to know that if you have been following our Mental Health Matters forums, we've used the word stigma a lot. Unfortunately, right now we're dealing with another stigma, and that's the COVID-19 stigma. And we don't get very close to people, and we avoid people. And unfortunately, that's one of the things that happens to veterans. People avoid them because they're worried that they may have a stigma, especially if they in any way, shape, or form know that person may have PTSD or has some lingering effect from their service in the military. Dr. Spont she's located with the VA in Minnesota, and she has found that there's a lot of factors that play into whether or not a veteran seeks treatment. And this includes age, includes distance from a clinic, it includes the severity of the illness. Hoping to better understand these factors and ultimately, hopefully, increase the number of veterans that seek help. Dr. Spont and her colleagues, Lance, our speaker today, and others are doing everything that they can to get veterans help. And right now, Dr. Spont is studying 7,600 veterans who have been recently diagnosed with PTSD. Those that suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder are always trying to gain some type of normalcy. They want to have their life back, and they also want to contribute to society. There's a lot of misconceptions and stigmas around PTSD that get in the way of successful recovery and the ability to return to duty. South Carolina is a large state. There's 46 counties in South Carolina. We have a large rural community of veterans, but we also have veterans that may only be 3 miles from the VA here in Columbia. But just that person, that veteran, leaving their home, leaving the security of their home, and going to get help can be a huge obstacle for that person. We want you to know that it's important that if you're an employer, that if you are also in the military, if you have a family member that's a veteran, you need to understand what the signs and symptoms are of PTSD. Unfortunately, as Lance and I were talking, I do suffer from PTSD. And there are times where there can be recurrent reminders of a traumatic event. One of the most horrendous collisions I had was at the 129-mile marker of I-26. And unfortunately, there are other experiences in my life that I've had. And those veterans have had a lot of those same effects. And in no way do I want to minimize the effects that veterans have sustained. Because can you imagine every hour of every day, there are military members guarding our assets and the assets of the world all over the country. There are veterans that avoid things that remind them of that traumatic event. There are veterans that deal with thoughts and sounds that trigger. We're going to talk about triggers later on in this presentation. And one of the things that you as family members and employers and others need to know is that when a veteran is constantly looking around, it can be muscle memory, because one of the things that the military are taught is called situational awareness. And we're taught that we should always be aware of our surroundings. The person that you're with, if they're a veteran, they may be particular about where they sit in a room. If they're at a restaurant, they may be constantly looking around. They may want to sit where they can see the door. We need you to make sure that you're supporting the veterans. And if you're a family member, we need your support. But there's a fine line, and Lance and I are going to talk about that here in just a minute. Because as you know, none of us want to have someone, quote unquote, nagging us. So a lot of times we're going to have to ask permission of that veteran to help them. Can I help you with this? We're going to talk in just a little bit about keeping up with medicine. So one of the things that you may be doing is asking your friend or your family member that's a veteran, can I help you keep up with this? Can I help you keep up with your medicine? Lance, we're getting ready to see this veteran speak about triggers. The veteran that you're going to hear from is Edward Fair. Lance, could you explain to us about the differences that the VA, the Disabled American Veterans, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and other organizations with the difference that they're making for veterans with PTSD?
Yeah, thank you, George. In regards to uh, these stigmas and the groups that are out there, there are a lot of helps. If a veteran had a T-shirt on that stated that he or she had PTSD, most people would not even try to address them because they think they're going to have a moment where they have some type of panic attack. But PTSD, George, it looks like you and me. It looks like regular people who are thriving in the community every single day. You have bank execs, you have presidents of groups and associations, you have many of our leaders who suffer from it. So it's something that we shouldn't be afraid of because, to be quite honest, George, you and I, every once in a while, well, we could use a hug. Now, we know we're practicing social distancing, but PTSD, I just wanted to stress the point that it looks like everyone else, your everyday person, it looks like them. So we shouldn't be handling them with some type of 10-foot pole or anything like that, and just move away from the stigmas. But in regards to your questions, there are plenty of helps out there. You have a lot of your historical veteran organizations that help veterans every single day. And let's not forget about many of our places of worship that some of them have programs, but they also are a place that you can go. So family members play a major role in how healthy a mind can be with our veterans, our law enforcement personnel, our emergency responders. How we talk to each other on a daily basis can make the world of a difference to many of our veterans, many of our service members, active duty, reserve, guard, our emergency service workers. You'd be surprised if you say something kind to them, how far it will go, especially if, someone who may be dealing with those type of episodes. So the video, like you said, that it's going to be a description. It's going to talk about what someone goes through. Now, when you watch this video, and everyone that's listening, and George, it's going to be some aha moments. It's going to be some things that we learned for the first time. But I can guarantee you, a lot of people are going to associate with what this gentleman's about to talk about, George.
That's really awesome, Lance. And folks, one of the things that you're going to hear us speak about are safe places. And when you are driving down the road and you see a sign that says VFW hut, that could very well be a safe place that a veteran goes where everybody knows their name. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and move to our clip, and we're going to hear from veteran Edward Fair.
Certain times of the year are trigger points in my life, like October. We had bad battle time, so it comes back, and you say, well, I'm not to think about it, but you don't have to think, it just sneaks up on you. It's like a ghost in the night saying, hello, I'm back, yeah, so you learn to deal with that, and you feel the triggers coming. Your brain's acting on smells, sounds, that bring memories up. And you'd be surprised the things, like certain songs can get me off, get me rolling right down the hill with anger, depression, and then others will do the complete opposite, cheer me up. So, no, it's how can I put it? It's things that you have to learn, and you need outside help to look at you. You need a sounding board.
Wow. So George, yeah, if we pay attention to that gentleman and look in his eyes, um, I see the eyes of a lot of our veterans who have gone through things or going through things, and family members, they're not even aware of it. I recall a veteran who we were visiting in the nursing home, and we found out something very special about him. And he was pretty much, George, on his deathbed, and his family never knew he was going through what he was going through. All his life, he came, you know, they finally figured out why he responded to certain things the way that he did. His daughter opened up his Foot Locker, and it revealed a history of things that he had gone through during his military time, and he was quiet till he got to his deathbed. So, you know, what we want to do is be able to have those safe places where veterans can reach out and feel safe and know that they can talk to a family member, maybe someone in their peer, some of the historical groups we mentioned, George, but we don't want that stuff to them to be on their dying bed and they finally get rid of it. They need to talk about it now because they're not living a full life. And so we want to make sure that all of our veterans, all of our service members, whether it's emergency responders, are living life to its fullest. We shouldn't have to wait till we get to our end of days to be able to have a happy life.
That's exactly right. And every person that has served their country, they deserve to live life to the fullest, and regardless of what they've been through. And it's up to us to help them live life to the fullest. COVID-19 is done.
I just wanted to add, we haven't had any comments in the chat, but we do want to acknowledge the individuals that have put in their name and where they're from. However, I was a veteran. I am a veteran. And I just want to say that sometimes for females, it's a little harder to acknowledge that you do have PTSD based on the fact that women, if you have kids, you're supposed to be a super mom and wear a cape all the time. And sometimes it's actually hard to still wear the cape and identify that you do have PTSD. And it's okay to have PTSD because that doesn't make you broken.
It sure doesn't. And one of the things, Lance and I, folks, we both teach a class called Mental Health First Aid. And in that course, there are a couple points that we bring home. One of the biggest points that we bring home, and we brought it home in forums before, is listen, listen, and listen some more. Because just like all of us, how many times a week do you hear nobody will listen to me? And the other piece is that when we talk about stigma of PTSD and fear and that, you need to know that people that hurt inside, they are more likely to be a victim than they are to actually cause someone harm. Lance, what are some ways that a veteran can stay connected with their family and friends?
Yeah, George, I appreciate that. We have to remember that only 1% is serving right now. That's a very small percent. And even inside that percent, we mentioned before that everyone in the military, they don't have PTSD. So when people talk about PTSD, it's this big elephant that's in the room that a lot of people are afraid. And Eva, I appreciate you mentioning about the women. A while back, a long time ago, I would say about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, SE Thrive did a survey throughout South Carolina, and they found that there's a large majority of women who are veterans who don't feel like they're veterans. And so that concerns me a lot because we're talking about not only sexual trauma, but just not feeling like they belong is a hard thing. And these are some strong women. We're talking about a lot of single moms, a lot of women who are carrying a lot of weight. She mentioned the Cape theory. That's happening big time. And now that we're in this COVID situation, you go from living in the dark to truly living in the dark. We're talking about hypervigilant all the time, being locked in the house. Most of our veterans were already locked up in the house, but now they feel even more seclusion because they can't talk or they have to talk at a distance. They may have to pass some information about having some type of suicidal ideations and they can't even speak out loud about it. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to feel safe. And that's just a major, major concern, George. And with the COVID-19, we know that here in South Carolina, the numbers are growing. So we might be going back into some type of quarantine. I don't know what some of the leaders of our state and our country are going to do, but we have to be safe. And let's talk about being compromised. George, there's a large number of our veterans who have lungs, who their lungs, I'm sorry, are compromised due to some things they experienced in Desert Storm, Afghanistan and Iraq with the burn pits, and then even some of our ones who have Agent Orange issues, their bodies are compromised also. So it's like a no-win type of situation, but when you reach out and try to get some of the helps, find resources that will allow you to live a life that you can thrive, that's very important, George.
It is. We want to remind everyone that just what this slide represents, that 1% serve and 99% need to support our service members and our veterans. It's so important. We here at SC Thrive, if you're interested, we're going to give you our website address later, and we offer a course on self-care. And sometimes that veteran may be or someone that's currently serving in the military may be so engaged in their service that they're not able to care for themselves. And we as family, we as friends, we as employers, we can help encourage every person that wears a uniform or is a veteran and encourage them to practice self-care.
Yeah, George, and as you know, with the mental health training that SC Thrive provides, in algae, in all the disciplines that we serve, and just to remind everyone, SC Thrive's mental health training serves these components: higher education, senior citizens, youth, military and veterans, law enforcement and corrections, and I believe youth. Yeah, youth. I think that's the one that I missed. And algae is the same for all of those disciplines. And in bullet point number 2 with algae is listening non-judgmentally. And George, you touched on that about listening. We can't have our minds made up when we're listening to a veteran. We need to hear them out so that way we know how to help them. And I just wanted to point that out, George.
Really appreciate it. Lance, can you tell us a little bit about the different ways that a veteran can, unfortunately people, veterans and other people that take medication with COVID-19, it's hard to keep track of your medication. It's hard to keep track of it regardless of what's going on around us. Can you speak to how an individual, how a veteran can keep track of their medication and make sure that they have access to it, even if they can't get out of the house?
Yes, George, there are several ways. And Eva, I want you to jump in
Okay.
at the end of my statement here. There are several ways they can do that, and we're going to show them some contact ways towards the end of this video. But Eva and I were discussing this the other day and preparing for this. And Eva, go ahead and share with them what we found out.
Okay, well, as you can see on this screen, there is a new label. So sometimes they might put this label on the actual bottle, but I've noticed that because of COVID-19, they've been putting all medications inside of a bag, and you'll get this label on an actual printout of all your medications, and it'll be either handed to you at the pharmacy if you go in for an appointment, or it will be sent to you through the mail. Now, how you can tell that you need refills is if you look under the name of the medication, it has how many refills you have. And you need to pay attention to how many refills and how many pills you're actually getting, because that will come into play once you get low and you need to call for a refill. Now, these are the new labels. According to the VA, they've changed labels. At first, it was a white sticker that they put on medications. Now it's identifiable. It's your name, how many times you need to take your medicine, your RX number. When you call it into the VA, you're going to need that RX number. You're going to do everything like normal. You're going to call the pharmacy at the VA, and you're going to put in your information like you normally would, but now you have to have that RX number. If you don't have the RX number, you can request to speak to a pharmacy tech, and they may be able to pull it up for you.
We do have, I do want to take a pause. One of the folks on our forum today, she had a really good question, and that is, she asked why the depression rates from the recent conflicts are so much higher than those from previous wars. And Lance and Eva, we can talk about that. But one of the ways that I want to lead into that is just the whole stigma of mental health in the first place. Is that unfortunately recognizing mental health has not been on our radar. It wasn't on our radar in the 70s and the 80s, and it's only started to really come on our radar in the last 10 years. And so they're actually if you've ever seen Saving Private Ryan, the character had a shake, had a tremor, and there's another incredible movie out there, The Greatest War, where the actor actually spoke about having shell shock. So in previous wars, there was actually a term called shell shock versus post-traumatic stress. Eva, I really appreciate you speaking about the medication. Lance, what else can you add to that?
Yeah, George. And thank you, Dee, for that question. So one of the big differences is both of those conflicts she mentioned, OIF and OEF, there were a lot of things that you can't unsee. There were a lot of house-to-house clearance type missions that our service members went through. So we use the term rounds down range. And when a service member has to fire his or her weapon, or they're clearing a house, you see things up close and personal. Or you come in your patrols, in your missions that you have, you come up to some things that you can't unsee in regards to aftermath. Maybe some things that some of the other insurgents have done, and then you come up afterwards and you see those things. Those things are hard to get out of your mind. Then you have the hypervigilance of roadside bombs that you constantly have to watch. You're constantly on edge. So unfortunately, those two events in our war, it caused veterans to see things differently. You know, some people think that wars are fought from miles and miles apart. Well, in clearing houses and roadside bombs, seeing the aftermath of things, those things are hard. And that's one of the reasons why those numbers are a lot higher than they have been before. During Desert Storm, it wasn't as evasive as we see it now with OIF and OEF. Those things happen. And then someone like Eva, she used to work mortuary. So those things are hard when we see a lot of our service members' bodies coming into Dover area. So, you know, you have a lot of personnel seeing a lot of things that that's causing those numbers to grow. And I hope that answered your question, Dee.
And I'd like to answer it also. The numbers are not out to undermine those who served in World War II and World War I, or the Korean War. some of those individuals came back home and went back to their lives and still have what we have now and didn't go to the VA. So like my grandfather, he served in World War II. He was at the Battle of the Bulge. He has flashbacks, but if you looked at him, he has a positive attitude. The way he told me is, you might call it PTSD or you might call it shell shock, but at least I get to wake up in the morning. I get to go to work. I get to see my family. It's different ways. It came out before he passed away, and that's how we knew he had it. But I think for him, it was a matter of pride not to go seek help. So you have to understand that for some individuals, going to seek help is, yes, they might need it, but it's a pride thing. And when they understand that they're not alone and other people are around them, they feel more comfortable that even if they don't seek the help at the VA, that they might go to McDonald's and talk to their war buddies about what happened back in the day. They might have a cup of coffee, they might cry a little bit, they might laugh, but at the end of that conversation, they're feeling a little bit better.
Yeah, that's awesome, Eva. And to expound on some of these acronyms that we often use in the military that become somewhat of a norm. So we're talking about OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom, and OIF, Operation Iraqi Freedom. So these are names of the mission, if you will, for lack of a better term. So Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. That's where the initials come from. And they actually have units at the Veterans Affairs, not the Veterans Affairs, but the Veterans Hospital that actually cover those particular groups in regards to some of the medical teams. So that's what those initials mean.
I really appreciate both your comments, and we do appreciate everything that people are putting on the chat. I want to tell you about a personal situation. This slide speaks about how you shouldn't wait till the last minute to get your prescription filled. And there are people like myself that take a medicine that can't be refilled over the phone to the pharmacy. And with myself, I have to go to the doctor's office and get the prescription and carry it to the pharmacy. And so my doctor's office, I went over and did what I usually do and forgot about COVID-19. And the first thing it said was, don't enter without your mask. And I didn't have a mask, so that was my first downfall. My second downfall was I called the phone number that it told me to call, and the answering machine said, please leave your name and message, and we check our messages every 2 hours. So I kept my head up. I walked out to the car, and my phone rang, and it was the doctor's office that I was trying to get into, and they said, Mr. Rice, how are you? How can we help? And I said, well, I need to pick up a prescription. And they assured me that the medicine would be faxed into the pharmacy and that I could get it after 5 or 6 o'clock that day. And unfortunately, I got to the pharmacy and they looked at me and said, well, we don't have a prescription for you. And I walked out the door and I said, you know, I'm going to walk back in. And I walked back in and I said, can you check how would it have come? How would have the prescription come in? And they explained to me, because I wanted to make sure it wasn't sitting on a fax machine or something. So it took a little bit of work over the next 48 hours to get that prescription filled. And those of you that are on this forum today, you have to understand that it's just like everything else. America is trying to catch up to all the effects and the life-changing COVID-19, and so taking care of yourself, making sure that your medicines are filled. There are applications for your phone that we're going to talk about in just a minute Some of the pharmacies, they have applications. And my wife is very diligent about me staying on top of my medication, that as soon as it comes available for refill, that I go ahead and get that medicine refilled.
Hey, George,
Yes,
I
sir.
wanted to thank you for the information, but this is one reason why I love the fact that we're doing this here at SE Thrive. I want to get back to a question that Dee, to finish up before we move on to the actual apps. Her question was, why do our veterans not exhibit signs until they come home? So when you're around a certain atmosphere where certain expectations are expected of you, you tend to do that thing every day, in and out, all day. When you come back to what you thought was normalcy in your community, that, you don't have military trucks rolling down the middle of the road. You don't have people hyper vigilant. You don't have people walking around with rifles, whether they're verted or inverted, meaning they're carrying them with the muzzle in the air or they're carrying with the muzzle towards the ground. Um, um, you don't have to go check a place before you walk into a room and pie the room up. There are certain things that you just don't have to do anymore. So a lot of the signs and symptoms doesn't come back until you get back home and you get back in your community and you try to live life normal again. And it's almost virtually impossible for some people to do that. They need a little help. And that's why we would encourage you to check in with the VA, to maybe seek out some help through family, through clergy, through some of the historical veteran service organizations. One of the partners with SE Thrive is our county service offices, where you have people in there that will be able to help you with resources. So that's one of the big reasons, Dee, that people, they go from one element to another element, and the element that they recognize when they left, it doesn't look the same, they don't feel the same, and that's when a lot of those episodes tend to happen with a lot of our servicemen and women when they come back. So I hope that answered your question. It's like night and day to many people. It's like going from cold weather to warm weather. You got to kind of get back used to it. And it's always hard for people to bounce back. You got some people that bounce back better than others.
And also, the best analogy I have is we had the old normal, and now we're in COVID normal, and now we're wondering what the normal is going to be on the other side of this. So that's literally the cycle that every military member goes through after they come back from deployment. And then on the other side, you have to think about the family members. When you left, they had to come back with, what do we do since mom or dad left? So they created their own new normal. So now you got a veteran coming back trying to figure out what the new normal looks like. You got the family trying to figure out, how do we incorporate dad or mom into our new normal and try not to make each other feel devalued.
Yeah, and that's great. And you don't have to be in combat for that to happen. You can just be gone, because they've been operating without you for a long time, and you can't really just come back in the house and start calling shots. It's going to cause all kind of disruption. So that's a great point. And we got to also remember, everyone is not involved in combat, but they are gone and they're away from home. And home has been operating with you being gone for 6 months to a year and a half. And it's always hard to come back and get acclimated. But one good thing about our services is that they have different plans, they have different programs to be able to help service members and their families kind of get back into a cohesive type of atmosphere. So, George, I just wanted to make sure we answered that question as we move down inside of our slide presentation.
I really appreciate it. And there's two important items that we need to bring up. We have some guests with us on the forum that are from correction facilities. And I can only imagine the work and how hard it is for them to stay engaged with veterans that may be incarcerated, and then also for the veteran that is incarcerated. And working as a paramedic, I come in contact with veterans that unfortunately sleep in the woods. They sleep under bridges. They are in a lot of secluded places, and they need our help. So the bottom line is I'm very thankful that we have so many programs represented today on the forum. We
Yeah.
want to speak. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, George. Yeah, I want to thank them also for coming. Not only do we have veterans who are working in those facilities, but we have veterans inside of the correctional system due to their PTSD or due to them not being able to adhere to some type of normal living. So it's hard all the way around, but I want to thank them for their service as they help those try to get back to, we keep using this word normacy. I really don't know what to call it anymore, but try to get back to some regular living, some normal living. And I'm starting to not like that word, so we got to come up with something else, because what was normal is not that anymore. And I think Eva kind of mentioned it before too. She was trying to figure out exactly what that is. And I believe, George, we were moving into the 4th of July, and I'll just go ahead and continue. Inside the county offices around the state, all the 46 counties that we have, inside the counties, not all offices have yard signs for our veterans that says, please be careful with your fireworks if veteran lives here. Now, there are some counties that have the signs, and there are some counties that don't have the sign. And we're not downing any of the firework companies that's there. We just want our neighbors to know to be careful, because there are folks out there, there's veterans out there, whether they've been in combat or not, that fireworks can maybe set off certain panic attacks. And we just want to make sure that we're careful in that. So I did find out that some of our county offices have those signs and some don't. I just don't know who have signs left, especially since most of the county offices are closed because of COVID. So you might want to reach out by way of a phone call to your county veteran service officer in your county to find that out. We know that on the SE Thrive system and the 1-800 number, we have the phone numbers to those areas if you need to call SE Thrive's 1-800 number to maybe find out who's in your area that's serving veterans.
I really appreciate it. Thanks, Lance. And we do hope that you, if you're a family member or a veteran, especially if you're a veteran, Lance has spoken before about going ahead today. Today's the 25th of June. There may be a safe place that you'd like to be with a friend or family member where the congestion of fireworks may not be as prevalent, or other triggers. Eva, we know that unfortunately there are veterans that they may not be familiar with computers. They also may not be trusting of computers, and that we, as family members and friends, we may be able to help them by employing some of the apps that we see here today.
Yes, so the way you can differentiate the veteran apps from the open apps are, if you look at the RX app right here, there's a lock on it. And that means it's only for veterans. However, you can go on the VA website right now, and they have over 50 apps available that you can download on your smartphone or your tablet or your computer, and you can help a veteran. Let's say The veteran already has the PTSD coach on their tablet. They're using it, but the family members feel like they need some type of app to help them along to figure out, am I doing it right? Am I not? What can I do to make everything better? They can get on their phone and download the PTSD family coach, and that helps them as well. Right now, they've just initiated the COVID coach. The COVID coach is for everybody. So if you had a nurse, she could download that onto her tablet, her smartphone, or computer and use it. The one thing that you do have to know is it will alert you. Some apps will alert you if how many times you've used it. Some will alert you if you haven't been on in a while. For the RX Refill app, that will actually send you a message in your phone. Hey, do you want to refill your prescription? Sometimes for those veterans that don't have a smartphone, your doctor can send an email, they can send a letter, they can also call you. Sometimes if you've had interaction with your doctor before COVID and you've said that you wanted your prescriptions mailed to you, they can put an automatic refill alert on that medicine and it can just flow through the mail to you. I just want you guys to make sure that if you do need a refill and you don't know the form that the refill is coming to you, call the VA and find out.
I really appreciate that. We've spoken, Eva and Lance and I have spoken about how great the mood coach is, and how it's not only can it be for the veteran, but it can also be for the family member. Just to track, in our forums, we usually have talked about journaling, and I think that Lance and Eva, I think that journaling could be a huge gift for a veteran to journal to their family members, because as you said, there are a lot of things that a veteran may not be able to speak about, and for me, there are a lot of times where it's hard for me to take the words that I have in my mind and actually express them. So it may be neat for that veteran to record them in a journal. One of the greatest things that one of my cousins did was interviewed my uncle about his time in the Battle of the Bulge, and now we have that on CD for forever. One of the things that we've done, ladies and gentlemen, is I have posted my email address, and I've also posted Lance's email address to you. Lance's email address is brokenfocus@live.com. And we hope that you'll reach out to us with any questions or comments that you have after this presentation. There are a couple people that are on our forum today that work in schools. Lance mentioned to you that we are doing programs where we do mental health first aid for teachers, and we would be glad to reach out to you and speak to you more about that. We also, SC Thrive is also doing programs on mental health first aid with the corrections organizations here in South Carolina. So we are just very fortunate. We want to recognize our sponsors for SC Thrive. We also want to take a minute to let you know of some of the resources that are available to you on the web. And then we also want to remind you that please let your friends and others know that this forum and other forums that we do each second and fourth Thursday of every month are available on our website. So if you we hope that you've enjoyed this form, and but there are other forms that we've done if you'd like to go back and view those. And we also would like you to encourage others to join us for our next forum. Lance, Eva, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, I got some closing remarks. I would like to encourage everyone that's on right now, to their decision makers, or if they're the decision makers at their organizations, or if you're just listening, the mental health trainings that we have at SC Thrive, they're very important. And it really gives the layman a chance to be able to help someone in their community, their church, or like I always say, you can be in Walmart and you can offer something to help someone who's going through a mental health crisis. So those trainings are real important, and SC Thrive does a great job of making sure that the community has the information to be able to help someone that's in need. So I can't stress that enough. You have our email addresses. If there are questions that come up that you need answers to, I would love to research it and maybe send the information to you, so that way you can continue to help those who have served. So thank you very much, George. Thank you, Eva. Thank you, SC Thrive. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of our day today. We also so appreciate your comments and your questions that you put in our chat. And we're also very fortunate that our sponsors and SC Thrive make it possible for us to have Mental Health Matters. I hope that everyone has a good 4th of July, that you stay safe during this COVID-19 situation. Please take particular attention to the recommendations that the CDC and others are putting out to keep you safe. And we look forward to being with you again. Thank you. Have a good day.